If you've heard about the astronauts that have recently been stranded in space, you might find this video interesting.
Can you imagine being an astronaut stuck in space for 9 months, and all of a sudden you come back to Earth where the gravity pull is completely different?
If you've ever been on a cruise ship and then got off the cruise ship and felt a little funny, or if you've jumped on a trampoline for a few minutes and then got off the trampoline and tried to jump yourself on solid ground, you've experienced a little bit about what these astronauts have felt being in space.
What we're talking about is the relationship between the ear and the eye and the brain, and we refer to this as the VOR. And the VOR system is vestibular ocular reflex.
This word vestibular, we're used to it, we use it every day, but it refers to our inner ear balance system.
There's this relationship between your ear picking up motion and your eye confirming what you just felt. This relationship, when it's working right, is supposed to help you feel balanced. It's supposed to help you have good spatial awareness, like you know where you are.
And our inner ear balance system relies on gravity. Our inner ears are full of fluid. They're like gyroscopes. And as we move, those fluids move around.
If you move like, say, 20 degrees to the left at a certain rate or a certain speed, then one ear is going to inhibit and the other ear is going to excite. And that feeling of change is picked up by your brain, and it's immediately sent to the eye. And then it tells your eye, you better move in the same direction, in the same angle.
Of course, if there's no gravity to pull on those fluids, they're just free floating in your ear. These astronauts, they get up into space, there's no pulling on the fluids in their inner ear, and suddenly it's very disorienting for them. Right. These astronauts have been in space for 9 months. Imagine jumping on a trampoline for 9 straight months and then getting off and trying to recalibrate your system. Yeah. It takes a little bit of effort and time.
In fact, they interviewed an astronaut who had been in space for about 14 days. His name's Jose Hernandez, and he was interviewed, and this is what he said. He said, I remember my first 2 words when I came down, from outer space back down to Earth was, gravity sucks. Because your body starts adapting and you've got to recalibrate your vestibular balance system.
Gravity sucks. That's pretty harsh because, usually I think of gravity as our friend, but I can imagine for these astronauts, they come back down to Earth and suddenly gravity is their enemy for a minute while they're trying to get recalibrated and used to life on Earth. I would just say this, when we see patients that have had vestibular issues, inner ear issues, and we diagnose some of these problems, some of the therapy that we recommend was actually designed by NASA because these problems have been going on for a long time. You don't have to be in space for 9 months to have these vestibular issues. In fact, this astronaut, Jose Hernandez, he was in space for 2 weeks. And when he came back, he had this feeling of, man, gravity sucks, it's so hard. And so it's kind of interesting to know that the therapy that was designed to treat this, in part, was designed by NASA to help these astronauts as they come back from space.
Right. That's right. And these astronauts have a lot to do with our patients. A lot of times when you leave Earth, I would imagine, and you get to outer space, it's an abrupt change, very fast. Well, doesn't that remind you of an infection? That all of a sudden your ears are working together, you have inhibition and excitation working against each other. There's a natural tug and pulley system happening. The brain is picking up these motions, sending signal to the eye, and the eye is responding, and everything seems to be in sync. And all of a sudden, one of your ears becomes altered by infection. And an abrupt change happens, and all of a sudden you lose function, we'll say on your right ear. To all of you watching, that looks like your left side, but if one ear just drops out suddenly, all of a sudden, it sends you into motion. It sends you into a very uncalibrated, disorienting feeling. In fact, oftentimes people, when one ear just changes abruptly like that, they fall on go into vertigo.
Yeah.
Like it's a really scary thing. And these patients, because of NASA and because of the great work that's gone on with physical therapy and NASA and the collaboration there, we can recalibrate. They call it, compensatory strategies or compensation type work where they try to bring things back to the normal habits. So habituation type exercises are really, really fundamental in helping people get better when one ear just drops out. And so thank goodness that these astronauts have gone through some of these things and they've worked out therapies that work, because they work with individuals that have unilateral weaknesses where one ear just drops out all of a sudden.
Yeah, it benefits those people today. And you talk about these sudden changes that sometimes our patients go through. It's also kind of interesting to talk about the gradual changes we go through. When we're young, when we're kids, we are very active. And we love to be in motion.
We're young and active and strong.
See, I see myself slowing down a little bit, and I'm not as active as I used to be. And that happens for most of us, right?
That's true.
As we age, we slow down a little bit. We're not in motion quite as much.
That's right.
And literally, the inner ears are not sending as many messages to the brain. And this happens gradually over time as our lifestyles become a little less active, a little less active. But guess what happens? You habituate to that. Your body gets used to being less active. So then when you do get in a situation where there's lots of motion, like let's say you go to an amusement park, you're 50 years old, you're not used to being on these roller coasters, and all of a sudden you say, I used to love this. When I was a kid, this was fun. I don't like this anymore. This is no longer fun because the brain isn't used to it.
No way I'm getting on the teacups.
Yeah. And same thing can happen even if you get on a cruise ship. You're on that ship, or maybe you're on a smaller boat, you get that motion going. You get off the boat, and some people still feel like, man, I still feel like I'm on the boat. I still feel this motion. And that can linger sometimes for a while.
That's right.
There's even a term for this, right? This is mal-day debarkment syndrome that some people go through after they've been on a boat or something like that, and they're just not used to being on solid land when they get off. So, yeah, this can affect us gradually as well as suddenly.
Yeah. So the bottom line is there is a definite relationship between the astronauts and what they experience and them needing habituation and rehab and vestibular kind of exercises to get their system back to normal. And so, if you're an astronaut out there, or you're just an individual who suddenly lost their balance, suddenly feeling quite off, or maybe you're an individual who just feels like, over the last 2 years, I feel like my balance is just continually, in a very gradual way, progressively getting worse, probably ought to talk to a balance expert. That's us, but there's people probably in your region or in your area that you can talk to about, what can I do to improve my balance, to improve my relationship between Earth and space here and how I feel in my space. And so we'd love to help you out, but definitely get educated, definitely get the information you need about what's going on with your system. You probably haven't been in outer space, and so it's probably something else. But get educated on that, and just know there's a definite relationship between how you put yourself in motion and how your balance system works. If you are slowing down and you're not doing backflips on the trampoline anymore, and you're not at the amusement parks all the time, and you're not actively moving your head around really quick, your balance system's probably slowing down a little bit. And are there things you can do to increase and improve the relationship between how your brain handles and manages motion, how your ear does, how your eyes work with that? Get some good information and you'll be happy because you'll live a more active life. So if someone wanted information about their VOR system, this vestibular ocular reflex system, and how to improve, where would they go?
Most people are going to look online, but you got to be careful online because not everything that you read is accurate or true. A doctor of audiology like us, we're actually really passionate about the vestibular system and the balance system. Even though we don't talk about it as often on this channel as we do about hearing, we love it. And if you have questions about it, come see a doctor of audiology. Us, another doctor of audiology that's passionate about the vestibular system, I'm sure would be more than happy to talk with you and educate you and help you. Maybe you're a little more like an astronaut than you thought.
Okay, everybody, we so appreciate you watching the video today. If you've liked what you've seen, please like it, subscribe to our channel. It means the world to us, but it also means the world to other people who are trying to figure out what's going on with their hearing health. So thank you for watching.